again for another night of the Heal Me campaign. We're just gonna make sure we get everybody squared away on our social media pages, and then we're gonna get it going. How you feel today?
Feeling great, feeling great. Ready to share some, share whatever's going on.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Waiting for y'all to come in. Waiting for all the good people out there to get in on this live. I'm Yusha Assad, recording artist, motivational speaker, master certified life coach, and this is the Heal Me campaign, brotherly conversations. People are coming in. All right, so once again, Yusha Assad, recording artist, motivational speaker, master certified life coach, here with the Heal Me campaign, brotherly conversations. We're for the month of May, between the nights of Sunday and Thursday night at 9 p.m. I've been talking to brothers about the difficulties that they faced and how they essentially came out of those difficulties. In 2019, I wrote a song entitled Heal Me, featuring Grammy nominated artist Raheem DeVaughn, which talks about how my father inadvertently taught me how to handle things in a toxic way. I would say toxic, right? And not such a beneficial way. But of course, as a grown man, being able to go through my own process of healing and having to discover how to get past my own challenges, I want to start having these conversations with men about how they handle theirs. The hope tonight is that through this conversation, brothers who are currently experiencing a darker moment or heavier moment of the soul would, one, know that they're not alone. Two, they would be able to see that they can get out of it. And then three, they may hear some strategies that they can employ from us that would help them not only get out, but also maintain their peace, power, and their purpose. My guest tonight is a super dope brother, super creative brother, and a real brother to me, right? Brother from another mother, not necessarily my blood, but he's my brother nonetheless. And we won't take it any different. So I want to introduce him and then now him to tell y'all more about what he does and what he has going on. This is Greg from the company Greedy Arts. Greg, tell him who you are, how to love you, how to support you, all of that.
Appreciate you inviting me on tonight. I know we talked about doing this, I think, last year or sometime, but some things happened. But yeah, Greg Arnold, I'm the owner of Greedy Arts. I'm an artist, so pretty much all of my mediums, I shift them with my. I'm gonna speak on that a little bit tonight. But the way that I shift my art right now, I'm doing a lot of the plush toys, collectible plush toys, lapel pins for weddings, enamel pins. I like to do a lot of creative pieces that bring back those times of your life where you're like, okay, I remember that time back when Wu-Tang pins from Winston-Salem State, or if I did a Rockefeller pins, to the Kanye Bears, to the Kobe Bears, to different things like that. So I'm just a creative, an artist. Use different mediums. You can follow me on my Instagram, Greedy Arts, greedyarts.com, and everything like that as well. So be something for a little bit of everybody on my page, and have a story that goes behind pretty much all my pieces that I drop as well.
Super dope. Thank you for that, G. We were talking right before we went on live, so we've known each other. I think we said 18 years. I think.
Yeah, going 18 now. Yeah, about 18 or so. Yeah, it's crazy.
College days swiftly pass.
Swiftly.
Yeah.
It seemed like school took forever. And it's like you get out of school, it's like boom, life hits you.
Adulting is a scam.
For real.
A music artist that I like who's about to drop a song who essentially says that adulting is a scam. They tricked us.
Yeah, we rushed to be adults, and then we sitting back like, what y'all do to us?
I don't know about you. I've been trying to figure out how to be a Toys R Us kid again.
I wish if we could bring it back. I'd definitely join up for that. Sign up ASAP.
Right. Let me break down for y'all the schedule for the night so that you all know. Greg knows, but this is essentially how the Heal Me campaign nightly conversations work. So we always start off with reviewing the song that I created with Raheem DeVaughn. When we listen to it, Greg won't give a review of it. What he'll do is he'll talk about how one of the lyrics or some of the lyrics related to him. After that, we'll get right into Greg's story. I'll ask him what broke you. If that's fitting for him, we'll go with that. If not, then I'll change the question to like, what was a difficult time for you? What was a difficult moment for you? From there, we'll dive into that story, and then we'll talk about maybe some of the vices that he took on, some of the things that he did to kind of get through the moment, maybe whether they were healthy or unhealthy vices, right? What are the things that he kind of put in play to help deal with what he was feeling? And then we'll move into his transition, right? What piece of knowledge, what person, what experience did he have that allowed him to transition out of the darker space and into a more enlightening path? And then we'll talk about the things that he did to get up, to get out, to get light, to improve his well-being. And then lastly, we'll talk about what he does consistently now to just maintain and continue to walk in the space that he's in. We'll finish off with Greg's three P's, and then we'll say goodnight. So we thank y'all for being here. Greg, you have any questions about the process before we get started?
Now let's roll.
All right, cool. We're gonna start off once again with the song. Let's get into it.
This is my prayer. See, my father never talked too much. Just that look in his eyes, deep stares out the window, told me that life was simple. But I would never know what he would never reveal. That sharp look in his face was pain he would conceal. He inadvertently taught me that real men don't feel. So don't follow your heart. Use it to advance your cause, but always follow your thoughts and make a smart decision. You should barely apologize and never ask permission. And when the world does a thing to try to break you down, don't tell a soul. They waiting just to take your crown. Your woman gon' think you weak if you express your pain. Your men gon' say you sweet, though they be feeling the same. So get a vice, a couple Hennessy, cigarette, live your life. Whatever you gotta do to get sleep at night. Cause for the longest you probably ain't sleeping right. Or even slept at all. When God calls, don't fight it, take a sigh of relief. That you ain't gotta live no more in this grief. Yeah, the cruel world that we living in is hard and cold. You ain't a man till it scars your soul. Straight up, so don't ever express your feelings. Sit in silence. Cause the only feelings you get are anger, hate, and violence. But see, the system got a process and a plan for that. Time is the only thing you got, so never hand them that. So if you ever truly feel like you about to break, get you a pencil and a notebook, let your mind escape. Writing is the only place where we can feel free. After he died, I read his notebook, he wrote, "Heal me. Heal me, yeah. Heal me. Father, don't nobody understand me. I won't make it out unless you come down and heal me, Heal me. They don't know the pain I've been going through. I call your name cause I know that you can heal me. Was he really that strong? Or just putting up a front? Did death come too soon? Or was it something he won? After 66 hard years of hiding them tears, did he get a reward? Well, let me make this clear that I think his vice got him. The thing he used to cope with life just took the life out of him. Them cigarettes that he was smoking all them stressful days. But we still had a few good days, and I knew, cause he would smoke one or two, but otherwise a pack. I used to ask him not to smoke again, but what I should have said was breathe, pop, don't hold it in. We do yoga to get peace these days, but them Carolina preachers didn't teach these ways. It was suffer and survive. If you don't get your blessings in this life, if you tired, you get them when you die. He used to hit that cigarette and play too much. That he got cancer and ain't say too much. He said, heal me, heal me. Father, don't nobody understand me. I won't make it out unless you come down and heal me.
G, talk to us.
Yeah, when I hear that, definitely heard that song before, especially when you remember when you dropped that. But like now, it's has a different meaning to it. So the biggest thing that I take away from it, like hearing it again today, so men and women, both with myself, you deal with the toughest battles alone. Sometimes in silence, sometimes to your detriment. Especially if you don't have a tight circle around you, or you're unable to have those brothers, like you said in the song, brothers that'll say to you, "Oh, you're weak because of this," but they're battling with the same things. And so the biggest thing that I take away from is that I was glad that I had those circles around me. And I'm glad I had those like people like yourself and, brothers and my line brothers and people at Winston, my family and stuff like that. So the biggest thing I always see is the path that I could have taken if I didn't have the support system where I battled with it alone. I battled with it alone for a little while. But people could see the reals come out of me, the brothers that know me, the people that really, really know me, could hear it in my voice, see it in my eyes, and were able to see it before I could get to that point where I could have gone down a dark path. And then, years from now, we're trying to figure out why and why and why. I think that was the way that kind of hit me today.
You said something real heavy right there. Of course we received the first part, right? So thank you for that. But that last part you said was years later.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out why.
Right.
And in that statement, man, that just reminded me of why it's so important for us to have grace for people. Because a lot of times we are dealing with people who are who they are because years ago nobody showed up.
Exactly.
That's a different level of grace, man. Thank you for that. We're gonna dive right into your story, man. What was it, man? What was the thing? What broke, man? What broke for you?
Well, I'll say the thing that broke me or tried to break me was my divorce that I went through, and that was in 2019. So that was something that was even from the words out of her mouth, it was the thing that she tried. Like it was like, oh, I broke them, but let's try to fix them now. So that was the thing that especially as being who I am and what the people knew around me, that was something that was quiet behind closed doors for some people. Some people knew what was going on, but that was the thing that it wasn't the actual divorce, like a separating or being away. It was the disrespect behind it. The high level of disrespect that was that hits a man differently when you sit back with it and you're like, okay, now, and the way that you deal with it is processing it in a different light. And the processing it is not saying, okay, let's, let's separate here. Let's do this. Let's divide whatever we have here. And let's, go on our way and make a good story behind it. And let's remain friends. It was one of those things where it was like, it broke me. It turned me to the person I didn't want to become. And I didn't know that was there. And that was a moment that I knew that was a moment that I didn't recognize myself anymore. And I was turned into a different version of myself that I didn't recognize. And if I was around other people, mainly I really wasn't around other people because of that. But that was the thing that was there. And it was just a level of disrespect that really broke me, and not the actual, the word divorce, but it was more of the actions behind and what led to that.
I want to stop and give a disclaimer too, because I should have gave it before we started, right? So I never tell people this is a safe space. I always tell people this is the internet. So you say what you feel safe to say. What you don't feel safe to say, that's on you to hold from that.
For sure.
My goal is to hold safe space with me. I'm a safe space in this case, but this is the internet, so be mindful of that. But so it's not the actual divorce. It's the disrespect.
Yeah, because the disrespect came before divorce. So yeah, so that was the part of it that that broke the solid, the caring, the person that everybody knows from school, everybody knows from the community, everybody knows me from growing up. It was the disrespect that broke. That was the part that was the breaking part of me, and that broke me to the part of turning into something that, or going into the realm of being able to try to heal or getting to the healing part of it. But I didn't even see that at that moment. The only thing I saw was, you see red, you see the anger side of, you see the pouring out of your heart is just in a different level. You're thinking differently. Everything is coming in a different way. So that was the part of it that really was hard to grapple and hard to hold on to and figure it out in my head. And it was just years and years of just going back in my head and just replaying everything, replaying. And then the 2019 was when, everything was, well, not finalized, but, the way the process works is you start that process. So, yeah.
How comfortable do you feel sharing with us what happened?
Not that I don't feel comfortable with sharing it, but I feel like at this point, I think last year, if I would have shared, I'm more at a different place now in my life where the sharing of it is more of sharing about, what I went through and where I am now instead of exactly what happened. So I kind of will share, a little bit of it, but I think that was to understand that, to look at it as in a sense, the shoes of a Judas, you know what I'm saying? Where it's like you're somebody betraying you, going to the extreme where you thought they were close to you. And I think the biggest part of what I've learned and what I've grown from that part is where I am today. And I go back and see the mistakes that I could have made and that I didn't make, and the things that were on the table for me, or I was thinking about, or I was on the path of going down. But then I had my friends and my family and people like that to make sure they reel me back in, to understand that, this is not whatever you're dealing with in your head that you're seeing and you're feeling, and the disrespect behind it. I understand it, but at the same time, let's reel this back in and let's try to go back there. So, and I did go through the process of dealing with the exact, like, what happened. And I realized that it wasn't realizing what happened, but just realizing that the person that did it to me at that time was somebody that I did not know. Figuring out that I did not know the person that they turned out to be was who they really were. So that I was try to realize that this is not a thing to try to put words behind, but to try to move forward. That was I think that was probably the toughest task to do, was to try to move past it and to move, not past, but through it. That was the toughest road, because when people leave you with broken pieces, you're the one that's there to clean it up. And the person that did the damage is the one that can walk away and go ahead and do what they want to do, how they want to do it, in their manner and their way of life.
Yeah. And I saw you self-correct, right, when you said trying to get past it, and you stopped and said, no, to get through it.
Yeah.
So I love that, right? So even in your ability to share that, right, we get directly to the feeling connected to it, which was betrayal. And you talked about the anger, the frustration, the seeing red. This was something that you didn't expect.
Yeah, for sure.
It wasn't like at first, man, maybe if you go back and looked at it, but there was like, you didn't see the signs.
Yeah, and I didn't see anything. So I think that was where the biggest, like, shock. Well, sometimes you can see something, but okay, yeah, I saw that coming. You have time to deal with it in your head a little bit before it really comes out, and you're like, okay, I knew that, I saw that, but this was more like, it was like a straight, just a heavy punch to the face and to the gut at the same time. So and then when that happened, I was when the spiraling happened, when everything was going, and that's what and when I said that, that's what I did in the beginning. I was trying to not go through it, because going through it, I had to deal with what I was feeling. I had to deal with the anger. I had to deal with what I was feeling and seeing exactly where I was coming from. So instead of trying to go around it, and then just in that place, it's sitting right here, but I'm just doing circles around it, like I'm doing a U-turn or in a roundabout, and I'm just going around it, and I'm never taking up my path to get anywhere else, because I'm just circling. And then once I was able to go through and figure out, because I'm a person that I have everything planned out. I think everything through. I know everything that was going on. I feel like you do, or feel like I do. And in a moment when that happens to you, that's when everything turns and shifts and goes in another direction. And then that's when a lot of the time, honestly, a lot of it feels like a blur, because it was just years of, like, even when I said it's like years ago, and like in the thing when I said you'll find out years later what really happened. There's still people that really don't know exactly what happened, and it's like it was during that time where it's just a blur. It was just going and moving and trying to continue to keep my feet under me and keep going and moving. Those are people around me that really, protected me and made sure I was good, and made sure I didn't, go down that, what was going on through my brain.
You said something that's super important to the conversation. You said, I'm the type of person who likes to have things plotted, planned out. I want to know everything that happened. That sounds like a person, because I can be similar. I'm similar, who loves to have at least some sense of navigation and control.
Right.
This was obviously something you couldn't.
Oh no. Yeah.
Talk about that part for you, about being a person who, loves to think ahead and provide and have provision for the future, but you couldn't control this one at all. How did
Yeah,
that?
because when
Yeah.
in that moment when that happens, because in your mind you're planning the future, you're planning on everything that's going to happen, you're planning on the next, everything's the next steps. So when that happens, everything takes a complete halt, and you start going backwards. And you start either, in my brain, I was trying to figure out. I think for the longest, I was trying to figure out what happened. Like, dang, did I because it was there was a way that some things were taken. It was like some blame was put on me in the moment. And then in the moment you're like, wait, what? And then so years later you had to figure out, like, no, this was just a way for somebody to not feel as guilty as they should have been in that moment, to try to say, okay, it was this. And then it was like, no, because it's like, oh, well, it was this. And it's like, no, oh, well, it was this. And it's like, no. And then that's where it's like, well, I was just, and then you kind of get to to the end, to part of it. But that's when, like you said, like the planning. I'm always in business and everything. I'm always 5 steps ahead. I'm always like, I'm in 2025, I'm in 2020, whatever it is. I'm 2 years ahead in my production, my planning, whatever like that. So in that same type of scenario, in that same type of situation, I thought, in not controlling his way, like, we're going to do this, and this, but that was definitely not in the cards in my head, at least, to go through that. So that was a part of it, and through that process, I've learned my planning is still, I'm meticulous in my planning, but I plan in a different manner now that is not so contingent on certain things to happen. So I'm more of like, I let the world flow, I let it go in my manner, and let it see exactly how it's going to work. If it works in a way that people that see my releases, they'll see I don't have a system to my releases. You got to be there. You got to figure out what's going on. I don't have on the 1st of this month, we're going to do this, on the 2nd, on the 15th of this month. So the same way in my personal life, I just let things go the way they are. I let things flow naturally. If they work, they work. If they don't, they don't. And so a lot of the things that I do now, or learning things from that I learned in the good part of it, where I was able to take from what I went through and what I'm healing from and continue to heal from.
I think that's dope. That's dope. And I understand that concept completely. I want to take you back, because we're not going to stay here much longer, but I want to take you, because I want to be able to uncover all of what the emotional state was in that time, the spiritual state was in that time, so that other people can learn from it. I don't know why y'all calling me. Y'all know I'm on the live. Look, that's actually my team who should be on the live with me.
I would say they know, the team know, they know you got the.
Yo, what did that do to your trust? Trust
Oh,
on
man.
others, and because essentially you couldn't plot this out. Did that one? I'm sure it affected your trust for others, and I want to hear about that, and we'll talk about how it improved. But I also want to know about, did it affect your ability to trust in yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, trusting. It was pretty much at that point, I was like, it's just me. And if you're not in like my immediate circle, or if you're not like somebody that's really, really close to me, it was hard for me to trust, especially anybody new, especially when I was, I know we'll talk about this later, but in therapy, I had the thing where I was like, anybody new coming into my life, it's impossible for you to enter my life. It's impossible for a new person that did not know me before, because I don't know what your intentions are. I don't know what you can do because something that this happened over here, or somebody that I knew for a long time. So I can only imagine what somebody that only has known me for, a month or so, or less than a month, was going to think or do. So definitely in that moment, I was really on. It was in the beginning. It was right before the pandemic was about to happen. So it was luckily, not luckily, but I was stuck in the house, and I couldn't go anywhere. But right before that, I really was just the trust level. And I started going back in my head and replaying, like, okay, who did I trust that I really didn't have a trust in? Or who was, like, it was just all these, I was replaying everything. Like I said before, where I'm planning ahead, at that moment I stopped and I started replaying everything. And that replaying of everything really turned into a different thing. So I didn't know who to trust. I didn't know who was reaching out to me that I already knew, or who was reaching out to me that, who was close to me, or was in my phone, that knew what was going on, or knew the damage that was caused, or was going on, and just let it, kind of go. But then, I was able to get through that. So that's, that's the next step. But in that moment, and trusting myself too, to say, hey, I trusted I put the trust in someone else. And I was able to, I was in the moment, I go back and say, okay, I was doing business with this person. I was doing this with this. I did this. I shared a lot of personal things. I shared a lot of things that I didn't share with other people at that time. And so that's where I was like, wait, now the trust level of things that were supposed to be a one-on-one conversation or a one-on-one thing or something that was supposed to be like, in the household. Now I'm like, okay, who else knows this now? So I really was like, it was just blowing. It was just going in different. My mind was just going in every which way that you could really think in that moment.
This is gonna be a good night because you and I are going, and we have similar stories.
Yeah.
Right. Not completely the same, but similar. And we know that. You said something. You was like, you had to talk about this in therapy, but you talked about this that it was virtually impossible for a new person to get close to you. And the thought hit my head is like, yo, you can get close to me physically, but you'll never know me. And I thought about that not in terms of just how I may have responded to people, or maybe how you, but I also thought about that when I see people or deal with people, I'm connected with people who I can see that in them.
Yeah.
That they have a trust. They have a trust that's related to like, I'll be next to you. I'll love you. I'll care for you, but I won't. You're not gonna know me.
Yeah, I had a very, very hard line of stopping whenever the conversation would seem like it was getting too personal. They were trying to get to know me. If it was anything that was like, business related or something that was, something that was going to, help my business or whatever it was, then I would kind of go there. But if it got to anything that seemed personal, if it was connected to Greg, then I was like, nope. And anytime I would go out in public, it was nothing. But even with that, like it was to the point where even dealing with people in my business was starting to get very, very tough. And I had the point where I was about to shut the business down in the end of 2019, early 2020. I was going to shut the business completely down because of that, because I just couldn't. I was just like, I don't feel like interacting with people. And I was doing wedding pins. I was strictly doing wedding pins at that time. So that was another thing that was just like, And so it was hard to put those things out there. But luckily that's when I started therapy at the end of 2019, or closer to the end of 2019 is when I was the end of 2019. So I was going back and forth in that, like, hey, I can't do this anymore. This is too much. I'm only doing wedding stuff. I'm getting bigger in the space that I wanted to be in, but now it's getting too much, And then that's when the trust of even meeting different people in different atmospheres. And then I was dealing with certain people through, DMs or emails and stuff. And it would get to the point where I was like, look, I don't want to talk to anybody new. I don't even want to deal with anybody. They don't, and if something sounded a little off, I was like, okay, nah. So exactly. I know exactly where that is coming from.
Sound like it created this low tolerance of like, if it even just sounds a little bit unsafe.
Yeah, my cutoff game was crazy. It was just like, nope, I either blocked you or you wouldn't hear a word from me again. So it was like, no matter what it was, not saying just with like, somebody else trying to talk to me or it was just strictly with anybody. It just was a tough moment of just like any time between 2019 and especially 2019. If I was talking to anybody, it was really sharp. It was really quick. It was like, nope. And it's the smallest thing could have. And that's why I didn't like, I wouldn't even go out to get out of the house most of the time. Cause I was like, I didn't even want somebody to bump in, say something to me that wasn't even, whatever it was. And it could have just took me to the path. I'm like, nope. So I was like, no new people. I was only talking to my circle or barely talking to my circle for real.
Yeah. Thank you for all of this. I want to go to the spiral. You've mentioned the spiral many times before. Essentially what you were spiraling down. And I believe, right, some of this is connected to it, right? So this lack of trust is connected to it. You talked about how you were running in circles around a problem and versus just dealing with it head on. But what was happening to you post learning what happened? You're going through all of this stuff.
Yeah, it was just
How
strictly.
how did your mental and spiritual condition change? How did your energy change? Where were you headed to before you really?
I honestly, I thought I was going to jail. So that's the only thing I could see. And I was like, I think it was like a part where I was like, okay, this it is what it is. This is what it is. I think that's where I started to get to, where I was like, that's the only road and path I see. And so a lot of people, and I think at that moment, that it didn't click in my head even in that moment. I think it was actually Sauce. I think I had a conversation with Sauce one day. I came to his house and he just looked at me and was like, yo, you good? And I was like, yeah. And I just kind of like, brushed it off. And we had a conversation. We were just going back and forth. And then since that day, he was just like, was blowing me up all the time. And he linked me with somebody. But before that, I was just down this. I was acting like everything was okay, like in the public and on business and everything like that. But I was going down the path of just destruction, where it was like, I didn't remember anything that my parents taught me. I didn't remember anything that I remember from, my morals and my values. It was just like the disrespect was just so high that I was just like, I don't have anything to lose at this point, because I felt like I lost my self-respect. And at that point, it was like, whatever's on the table is on the table. And so during that moment, it was very, very tough for me. It was very difficult, draining. It was very draining. And so that was a road that sometimes when I look back on, I'm glad that that I had the circles around me that could see and that were staying on me and saying, hey, man, I understand what you're feeling. I understand it's justified what you're feeling. But at the same time, it ain't worth it. Don't, because then I'll be sitting, like I was saying in the beginning, years later, this conversation could be from a different place. I could be from a different mental space. And y'all could be asking, why did Greg do this? Or why did he go down this path? Or why did he choose this decision? Instead of saying, how did you get through? And how did you get to the other side? Instead of saying, why did I do something? So in those moments, I didn't see the other side at that time. It was just shut the business down, shut everybody out. Don't talk to anybody. I know I have a lot of loved ones, but I knew I had a lot of loved ones that are around me. I knew I had people that didn't want to see me down that path. And some people I didn't even tell what was going on because of that. I was like, I don't even want you to try to keep checking up on me. But then once people found out, like in the close circles, everybody made sure they stayed on me and, nonstop. And so I really, and now, like, those are the people that are closest to me now, the people that during my darkest times are, with me during my brightest times. So
I love that. People who are with you in your darkest times and they're with you in your brightest times. Let them shine with you for sure.
yeah.
I'm proud of you for being able to just make space for those people, because it sounds like you are a plot, plan, and premeditation away from not being here with us. And I could understand how you could be driven to that. So and you use Sauce's name, right? So
Yeah.
you said it so I can say it. So you was it that connection to the person he connected you to that helped you start to shift? Or was it like, can you remember a specific thing that happened where it was just like,
so during that time, like, a lot of stuff was really, everything like ran together. But I do remember that call where I think I was in Raleigh, maybe. I was somewhere on the road, and he called me on the phone. And he was like, yo, I just need to put you in contact with somebody. He's like, you don't got to talk to her. He's like, just take her number. She's going to call you right now. And it was a therapist that he recommended. And I got on the phone with her. And I don't know what it was. It was something that just made me just like say, okay, I'm gonna just try this out. I don't know what it was that made me say, because at that moment I really was just I'm not talking, I'm not listening to anybody or whatever it was. But I think it was a moment where, actually I do remember now, it was more of when the reality started kicking. So for a little while, I was in you're in denial. You're like, no, this can't be life. This can't be true. This can't be real. And you're trying to protect the person that did it to you. And you're trying to protect this. And you're like, okay, what can I do? And then once you realize, no, this is the person that caused this anger. This is the person that caused what I'm going through. And I was able to step back and see, like, oh no, I'm doing myself even bigger disservice by protecting and being there to, say, by holding my vows or whatever you might want to call it. And I remember the conversations with Sauce, and he just said like, yo, I can't do it because, you know, of our, you know, our relationship that we have as brothers and, you know, friends and stuff, but I have somebody else to talk to. And so I think I did a first call with her, and I go to her still to this day, and I talk, and that was the thing that saved me and saved everything, was therapy. Like I always say, that it saved my business, it saved myself first, it saved Greg, it saved myself, my mental, it saved all of that, my physical, my mental, and it took me and it brought the business back. It took everything to a different level, because I still go to therapy, and because I did go to therapy at that moment. So I think that was the turning point, is when I accepted that I knew that I was doing something. And even through therapy, I was still having the anger and still having the conversations of like, she would call me and say, Greg, we were like, it was weekly. Sometimes it was daily. I was doing daily sessions. Sometimes it was that intense. And it was that the anger level was so high, because it was in 2019 when everything was still going on. And it would be like, hey, what's going on? I'm like, hey, I was close. It was blah, blah, blah. And so I was listening to the things that she was giving me, a lot of key things that I still use to this day, and still new things that she teaches me today that I take through therapy, take out of therapy, and go through at the same time. I have a therapy session on Friday, actually. So we still talk to this day. And that was the thing. That was the turning point of, okay, I can finally unleash everything and hear it from another, and be able to have that back and forth dialogue and hear things that I'm not used to hearing, or things that, you know, my friends wanted to say to me or said to me that I just didn't listen to because we were so close. And I'm like, man, you know me, you know. Instead, I can't say it to a therapist that is only hearing the story, and they're saying, okay, I understand what you're saying, but also let's look at these things. And so that was the biggest turning point in my story, that I always preach on today, always, and yell therapy, therapy, therapy forever. Even the painting behind me, this was the therapy piece that I made. Had somebody sitting on the couch from the Jay-Z 444 album. So it was just things that I always like. Therapy. If somebody says, how did you make it? I'm like, therapy. And my friends and therapy, and then friends, family, and everything else in my business. But it was therapy that was the driving force of everything.
Super dope, man. Super dope. Super proud of you.
Appreciate it.
Super glad you made it. You know, being here in DC, a lot of things I have to hear about from the brotherhood or from a distance. But you were in heart heavy during that time, because though I didn't know your direct, you know, thing, because it's you, we all handle things differently. I know that could be a difficult thing. You said something, and I don't want to take it back, because I like the space where we're in. We're talking about your transition. There's two things you said that I want to give breath to. One, you said she saved Greg. Therapy saved Greg.
Yeah.
Were you doing any unhealthy things during this time?
That's the crazy part. I wasn't, because in my mind, I was like, I wanted to be in clear, sound mind if I did anything. If anything happened, I want to say, yes, I did this with my clear conscience and clear mind. This happened because I wanted to do this, and I didn't want a vice to be there. I didn't have any. I had the cabinet full of alcohol. Everybody know, you come to my house, I'm gonna have, you know, you can pour up a bottle wherever you get here. I didn't touch any of that. I didn't have anything else. It was just strictly, it was my focus was just like, it was. And that was the crazy thing too, because even through therapy, she asked me, she's like, did you, was there anything that you were just doing unhealthily? I was like, it was, the unhealthy part was just the wild thoughts that were going through my head, the crazy moments of saying, do this, you should do this. And I was sitting with my thoughts, and I'm glad that I did, because I didn't have any moments where, if I had a substance, or I had something that I was using, or if I had something that was, clouding the judgment, then I could have done something that could have been, even crazier. But everything was with a clear conscience when I was doing everything. And that's why I'm saying in those planning, in me being a planner, that was like the thing that I was like, okay, I need to know what I'm doing. I can't let this bottle, or this, this blunt, or this whatever, or this drug over here, or this drug over there, or whatever it is, be able to, change who I am, because that changed who I was. So I was like, I felt like there was nothing else that I wanted to do or needed to do in that moment to shift my brain, or to even do that.
That's heavy, G. It's one. I want to say it's good that you didn't take on, any unhealthy drinking or like substances, but that's also heavy for to me, right? And it may not be heavy for others, but that's heavy to hear that because you were really like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna stand on it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you for clearing that up. The other thing you said too, because I said it was two things, was you said, and your father just mentioned it on IG, or your father and your mom, whichever one, I think it's your dad. But said you said that the Sauce basically was like, yo, you have to talk to this lady. And he
Yeah.
just stayed on you. And he stayed on you. And then finally you gave in. Talk about the power of consistent friendship.
Mm. Yeah, man. Cause we Spring '07, so we came in, we 16 years now. So like all of us are like, we like that we're brothers. Like we call you, we're brothers. And so I don't have a biological brother. I have brother-in-laws. I don't have biological brothers. A lot of us don't have biological brothers. I don't think pretty much only, I think, Bean does, a couple of maybe one or two others, but mainly everybody else is either an only child or has a sisters. So our connection that we have is just is just tighter than I've ever seen, even and including Spring '06 too in that. But Spring '06, Spring '07 that we have, it's just a rare group. I don't think I'll ever see another group of guys like that. And every single person in the chat reached out to me, every single person, just individually, in the chat. And even when I left the chat, people blew up my phone, texting, calling. So I left the chat. I was like, it would group me. So I got out the chat. Got out. You couldn't find me. I was like, I don't want you to find me. I don't want you to see me. And everybody still was like, yo, you good, you good, you good. What's going on? What's going on? I would just, I would give people the short answer sometimes. They were pushing and pushing and pushing. And it was so in my mind, I'm like, yo, this is annoying. Leave me alone. But then in reality, I'm like, no, I'm glad that they took that time and took those moments and took those days and hours and whatever was going on in their lives to say, okay, we need to check on Greg. We need to check. And I know people were probably texting, Sauce and whoever was closest to me to say, hey, what do you need to do? What do we need to do? What's going on? And it's obviously Sauce is closer to me because we're closer to each other. And then also, and he's right down the street too. So his family was also a big help in that, where I was living in Ballantyne. They were living in Concord. That's like a 40-minute some drive. So I was just up there all the time. They're like, hey, just come up and just bring some food, chill, and just, bring Shaq, bring the dog, bring your food, just come and chill for the day. Do whatever it is. We gonna, we ain't got nothing going on in the family. We got you, whatever, you can chill here. So throughout that process, it was just like an ongoing thing of just making sure I was good, between Sauce and Chaz and everybody else. And then once my family found out too, then they were on me all the time. Or talking to my sister, Ebony. She was texting me, calling me all the time, making sure Ebony, Kimberly, and my mom and dad and everybody else as well, and like my immediate family. So yeah, that was, I don't think that is, people say, in college, what's the biggest thing you take from, what's the biggest thing you learn, or what's the biggest thing that you take away from, your education is. Mainly it was the friend group that I built. It was the friendships, the lifelong brotherhoods, the lifelong, friends that I still to this day, and when we go out, they protected me. They make sure, like, because they knew where my mental was. Yeah, you guys knew that I was still in a place where I'm healing. So if something looked like it was going to go off or go left, or I could have had a moment where I'm like, hey, Greg's not acting like himself. Y'all made sure I would look around and I'm like, wait, everybody's behind me, So it was at homecoming still. The last time I'm in a great space and I'll go and run on the floor by myself. And I turn around and everybody's behind me, just making sure, like, okay, we know Greg is in a better space, but let's make sure that he's 1,000% good. So yeah, everybody, they made sure I was, they protected me. They made sure that if anybody tried to come in and ask questions, they were, saying, oh, just wanting to figure out what's going on. I see Greg not with Ben. I see this, just trying to get some info. So everybody made sure that I was just still to this day, and we all protect each other and we still do that. So, love everybody that did that. And still to this day, it's like the best thing about college that happened was the, Spring '07, Spring '06, and any other friends, my Stoop boys, everybody else. So we still like that. So it's, I'm grateful and thankful for everybody, still to this day.
Kudos to the bros.
For real.
We the bros.
We the bros. Yeah. I told somebody, I was like, we the bros. We been the bros. We never wore nail. Yeah, we didn't. We walked around. They said, "Who that?" They be like, "They're the bros." You know, and it's not no cute stuff, no nothing like that. They knew who we were. We walked in. They said the Alphas are coming, but they ain't got black and gold on. But them the Alpha, they over there, and we knew it, and they saw it because it was Spring 06, Spring 07, everywhere we went.
Shout out to all the Reds on the line. We the bros.
For real.
Yeah, I love that, man. I love the power that consistent friendship had in your life, right? It led to resources. You talked about the frustration, the irritation behind the consistent checking, but in hindsight, you're grateful for it. And I think those are very critical pieces for men who might be experiencing difficulty, especially in scenarios where people might feel like they don't have anybody, because to tell somebody what happened, right, could create vulnerability for you, right?
For sure.
It's a point in which it can be used for attack, right? But to tell somebody what happened, the right person what happened, was really your biggest asset, your biggest resource in case, because then your brothers were able to show up for you. Let's talk about your transition, right? So we talked about, we've already started the transition in terms of talking to a therapist and having consistent therapy. And you're giving so much kudos and credit to therapy. You're giving so much kudos and credit to family, to brotherhood, as being your way up. What are some of the practices, self-care practices, that you developed during that time to kind of get yourself back to a more
the main thing was trying to sleep, eat, because my sleeping habits, my eating habits, everything was just off. Either I wasn't eating, I would have times my sister would text me like, "Did you eat today?" And I was like, nah, I didn't. And I'm like, I don't remember when the last time I ate, or the last time I really had a full night's sleep. So once I started really, getting better and started feeling better, I was like, I need to sleep. And so, through therapy, we were talking, and she was like, "Hey, I know everything's going well in business. Like, you might need to take, a trip somewhere, go here." So that's why I was in LA a lot. I was back and forth between LA and Miami out, because that's the jet lag, and getting out there was doing that. And then I was able to say, okay, I'm out here now. I can have days to do my work, and then have days to literally just go to sleep for the day. And I would just sleep and just come back and say, man, and I'll come back with a therapy session. Like, "How was LA?" I was like, "Man, I slept well." And that was like a big thing for me, because I was able to rest my brain, able to do that. And I did a lot of journaling, still journal to this day, getting the thoughts out of my head, being able to say, okay, if I am feeling, because, it was a process to be able to move through and transition through. And even though I was like feeling better, I felt like I was moving through it. There were still times where I would have where something would trigger something, a thought from the past, or trigger this. And instead of acting on it and saying, "Oh, I need to go do something now because I'm mad again," I'll be able to put that thought, write it down, put it in my journal, and say, okay, this is what I'm going through. This is what my brain's telling me. And then be able to get to the end of that and say, okay, I don't still feel the same anger. I don't have the same pain. I don't have the same things. And there were small things, like it was certain things I just didn't want to do. I would drive to Kentucky sometimes with no music, just complete silence, just for the 6.5, 7 hours up there. And so just doing small things like that, being able to enjoy music again, being able to enjoy concerts again, being able to just enjoy life, just enjoy myself, and enjoy the fruits of my labor that I was doing, because I was doing well. I was being successful. I was doing the things that I always had said I was going to do prior to what happened. And I was doing all those things, and I wasn't able to enjoy it because I was still going through the process. And the biggest thing that I was saying was being able to say, okay, I need to go and enjoy this, enjoy that. I wasn't celebrating, the wins. I wasn't celebrating myself or celebrating where I had gone out of or gotten out of at that moment. So those were the biggest self-care things that I started to do, was just, breathe and take a second and be able to go to sleep, be able to enjoy a movie, be able to enjoy TV shows, be able to enjoy a concert, just the small things that I was taking for granted before, because I was like, oh, this is just the norm, and this thing that I was doing every day, and eating and sleeping and stuff like that. So I think that was some of the things that in the beginning that I started to do to get to the next step.
Thank you for that. Yo, that's super powerful. There's a few things in there that's super powerful. One I want to point out though, and I don't want to keep going back, but the point of us having these conversations is to help somebody who might currently be there. You
Right.
talked about I'm essentially you said that I'm winning. Like I'm being successful. I'm doing the things that I always wanted to do, that I said I was gonna do. And this is post divorce, right?
Right.
Someone would say that the best way to get through a situation, over a situation, to get revenge is just to be successful. But it sounds like that success wasn't necessarily like you finally hitting your run, wasn't necessarily the thing that saved you, because even when you got there, you couldn't enjoy it yet.
Yeah. It was still because literally everything. So it was 2019 was when everything was going down and happening. As soon as I signed the papers like, you got to do like the year process. So it was like the beginning of 2020 is when everything was like finalized. And then the Bears happened in June of 2020. And so when that happened, it was like boom. And I think everybody assumed like, oh, this is you're about to be feeling. And when it happened, I was just like, I had the straight face. It was just like, okay, cool. Like I didn't have the same, I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed what I had created. I enjoyed the fruits of labor. I enjoyed all that stuff, but I still wasn't, it was a moment where I was like, it was still feeling like, why did I have to go through that to get to here type of thing. And so when I had that moment in my head, it was like, okay, and that's when I was processing that through therapy still too. And she was able to, walk me through that process of it and say, okay, you can't look at it, exactly like that. But that was where my brain was. It was like, I had to go through all of that to get to this. And it was like that was the tough questions that I was giving myself. So it took me a while to even be able to enjoy it. And I started just overworking slightly too in that moment of just keep going and going and going and going to like think and say, okay, if I do more and more and more, I'll get that out of my head, or I'll get that away. And it was like, no, you need to go. I was going around it and I wasn't going through it at that moment.
Can I interject? Because
yeah,
we about to have vicarious therapy through you. So if success isn't the answer, what did you discover the answer was in therapy?
It was me. I had to find who Greg was, who was the new Greg, because the old Greg, he died at that junction in my life. He was gone. So anybody that knew me prior to that you'll see people that say like, you're more, you talk more, you're more outgoing, you're doing more, you're taking more risks, like, proper risks. So the success was there. And I think people assume that, oh yeah, they say the best revenge is to get success. And I had it and it was still not enough to get through what I was dealing with mentally, because it was still just like a heavy load. So I think the biggest thing was me rediscovering who I was and trying to figure it out. And so I was going through the motions and trying to figure it out. And that was the toughest part. Like, who are you? What is the new Greg offer? Who is the new Greg now? What do you bring to the world? Who are you when you do finally get back out in the world and go back outside? You're not the same person anymore. You don't have the same friend group. You have the same, connections like that. But then yourself, you're still a different human being. And so that was the thing that I had to just sit on for a while and just try to figure it out. And I was, traveling, going to different things alone. I did everything solo. Literally, I was in LA by myself. I was in Miami, I was going to festivals by myself, concerts by myself. I was just trying to just get out there and just figure out like, okay, do I still like the old stuff that Greg liked? Am I still the same man that I was before? I'm just more, I have, my voice is just a lot louder. My voice is stronger. I have a, my tolerance level is quicker, but then I had to realize, exactly where I was or what I wanted to go through and who I wanted to be on the other side of it. So that was the biggest thing. So success was like a small part of it, because the success allowed me to heal, so I could sit back and take time off to say, okay, I don't have to overwork myself right now because I did well at the beginning of the month. So if I need to take a month or two off, I can, and I can go and really heal and say, okay, walk around LA, walk around Charlotte, walk around wherever you need to go to tap into your brain. So sometimes I'll take me and my dog, we just go. I'll go to Kentucky for a week or so. I'll go here for a week. Or I'll go here. I'll go to LA for 2 weeks. I'll go to Miami I'll go wherever it was. It's just try to like expand my mind and just see who the new version of myself was going to be and turn out to be.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for that response. So who is the new Greg, man? Tell us. Who is the new Greg? What
I'm,
did you what did you discover?
he says, what was the last thing you said?
So what did you discover? Who is the new Greg? What did these Charlotte and these LA walks uncover
It
for
was, I found out I'm still the same individual that I always said I was. Cause I think I had a moment where I was like, maybe I wasn't going to, maybe this all happened because I had these far aspirations that were unreachable and unattainable. And maybe I was reaching for these stars. And, I always say the sky's not the limit, it's just a view. Maybe the sky was the limit, all those things. But now I realized like, no, I'm still the man I always said I was. And I stand stronger in it now. And I have more of a voice to say all the things I was saying before, kind of quietly or to myself or just in the household or to another person. I say those things louder now, and I'm able to, use my voice and be exactly who I want to be in any room I walk in. Like it was times where I would say, okay, I need to walk into, I'll go to this event. I need to wear this, or I need to dress like this, or I need to do this, or I need to have my hair like this, or I need to do this or do that. And now I'm like, if I walk into the room, I'm walking in like me. If I went to a store the other day that was a Jordan, all Jordan store, and I went in there with just to go in there. And usually, if I'm going in a place, I'm like, oh, I need to put my Jordans on. I need to put this on. I need to put this suit on. If I'm going to this room, I need to do this. And I was talking to a group of kids at my sister's school, and I told them, I was like, the biggest thing you could do is just walk in the room as yourself, and whatever that is, that's who it is. So I walk into different rooms, and I'll be there myself, and the new me is just I'm proud of who I am. Prouder of who I am. I always knew who I was and the things that my dad and mom instilled in me, and made sure that the values that I had and the morals that I uphold. And the new version, I thought also that my new version of myself would be, like I said before, not trusting anybody new, not allowing anybody new to come in, but allowing myself now to say that doesn't make sense to do that, because you don't know, God was able to take somebody out of my life to bring me to this new part. So why would I say that now I'm unable to understand that I can't have something new? He brought a new part of the business into it. So why can't I have new friends or somebody that can come into my life? So there's different things that I had to take the wall down that I built up to protect myself in the transition, to say, okay, I'm never going to go back down that path. So I'm going to lock everything away. And so once I was able to take those shields down and turn into just letting things be, like I said before, when I was talking about just letting things work the way they work. And that's what I do now. If I go out and I'm doing something, I was just in Orlando last week, and had no plans. It was just, we went out, just going. If it worked this spot, cool. If it didn't work this spot, cool. Going to the next spot. And I'm able to see now that the anger that I had, that was me just being frustrated at life. Because I've had moments, even I told you I was in Orlando, I had a bouncer that said something to me. Wow. I turned around and looked at him real quick, and it was the moment of that 2019 anger that came, and I just sat there and I smiled at him and just nodded my head and walked away. And it was just like, but I was like, I know in 2019 I would have just went off, and wouldn't have been what he said. It would have been because of what my head was telling me, and because I wasn't able to process exactly where I was and going through.
Yeah, I'm smiling because when I reached out to you last week to do today, when we talked about it last year, I knew you were going to be a great candidate for the Heal Me campaign conversations, especially once you got to this place. And I'm in love with this conversation because I know, and I as your brother, right? I know from experience, I know that the way you walk now ain't like you used to walk before, right? There's a confidence, there's a fearlessness, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like, because you said something, you was like, if God can take somebody out of my life, why can't he bring somebody else, new in my life? And that helps you to transition to a place of being able to trust. But it's also like, yo, once you've been through the pits of hell, even if in your own mind, and you escape. You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, Yeah, that's where I was. I was like, I kept saying that over and over to myself. I was like, I'm not letting anything new, anything happen. Cause that's why I felt that everything that was connected to my past or connected to that, if it was trusting a woman again, you got to trust a woman again. You got to trust everything again. So it was like this. And but that was that wasn't the new me. The new me was not that anymore. So I was trying to use old tactics in my new body, in my new mind now. And so I was like, that's not going to work. That's not going to come apart now. But I still had the wall up to know. I knew even more now to say in therapy. I said, she was like, hey, are there things that you see a little clearer now? So there are certain things that I would see clearer and say, okay, yeah, this is a red flag now. This is something that I would not tolerate. This is something that I'm not going to deal with. And those people did get cut off. There are certain people that, I've not met around the path that I don't talk to it now, that I met after the process. But there are a lot of people that I met knew that are still a part of my process and journey, and will still continue to be, because they see the new me and the old me. And you got to be able to understand the old me plus the new me at the same time, and to be able to see the transition and the growth and the healing in it, because it's live. I'm still healing. I'm still growing. The healing process is an ongoing thing. So the people that do enter my life now, they have to just know that it's an ongoing process. It's an ongoing thing. And if you're just here to say, I heard somebody like waiting to say, oh, are you back to doing this now? Are you back healed so I can talk to you again? I'm like, if you waited for me to get here, that was the worst thing that you could do, because I'm not just waiting to say, okay, you're only here for the highlights and not for, the process and the journey. And that's just something that I just had kind of put into my brain, at this new version of myself with a stronger voice and stronger walk and everything like that.
Healing is gangster, y'all. It really, really is. I want to just reiterate some points for everybody who's listening, for some of the things that you employed to just get to where you are. First of all, we have to reiterate consistent friendship, brotherhood, and the importance of being vulnerable with your brothers and having that space. Two, therapy, and more therapy, and a good
Sure.
therapist, and a good therapist. Shout out to the good brother Sauce, who will not therapize me because it's unethical. But I keep telling him I need to have therapy with somebody I trust. Therapy. You also talked about journaling, and how important it was for you to be able to get your thoughts out through writing. Physically, man, you talked about making sure you maintain what you eat and then sleep. And how important it is to sleep. And everybody knows, you can get angry when you're hungry, but you can also get angry when you sleep.
Sure.
And that could have a lot to determine your mood. And so, but between love and family and connection in that way, therapy, journaling, improving your sleep patterns, and then allowing yourself to kind of sit and rest. One of the biggest things I think that I took from tonight from you is that this not that you've moved into a place in your life where you don't plan and structure and strategize, but it's almost like you leave room for God.
Yeah.
Like leave room for the ebbs and flows of life. And it's not like you have to control everything. You're like, I plot and I plan, but the rest I let it flow.
Yeah.
And that sense of flexibility, what I mean, I think is what I took from the night too, man. Thank you so much for tapping in with us. We're a little bit over time, but this has been good. This has been real good. Let's get into your 3 Ps. Your 3 Ps, G. I'm just gonna ask you these 3 Ps, and you answer with the first thing that comes to mind, man.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
When do you feel most peaceful?
At home.
Shout out to Shaq too. When do you feel most purposeful?
In my art, in my business, when I'm able to create.
Thank you for that. And then when do you feel most powerful?
Most powerful. I think it's again in my art, because I'm able to reach so many different people and be able to tell my story and bring it to around the world. I feel powerful in that moment, because I'm saying, I'll look and say, I'm shipping something to Africa, I'm shipping something to Australia, I'm shipping, and then I'm telling the story with it. And my story is a part of each bear that I create. It's a part of each pen that I create. Every album that I'm doing something for, it has a meaning behind it. And so it's always powerful to tell my story every time. Like I was saying earlier, with the being able to leave room for, you know, God to do his work in my work. I'll have all of the stuff created, and then I'll have a moment in my mind where I'm like, this song is really resonating with me right now. I'm gonna release this bear this weekend. So I'm healing through my releases, and I'm able to give people something. I think that's why a lot of the people, they connect with the bears, and it's more powerful than just bears. And people were looking at me like, I remember when I first started, they're like, you selling bears? And now it's like, oh, you're selling bears. It's like, oh yeah, you see, they're all around the world. People have big collections, and each one is a piece of me. Each one is a piece of my story. It's where I am in my journey. It's where I started from. It's where certain songs that I'm going through. So I think that's where the power kind of goes. And when I feel not voiceless, where I feel like I don't want to say much, I'll just let it go through the art and through my work like that.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I am really looking forward to reselling one of your bears 20 years from now for 20.
People already doing it now. People be mad at me. I'm like, it ain't my fault. I don't have a problem with it. I made mine. You can go. We good.
Right. Now, what I got for Gianna is in close care. Thank you so much again, G. Like I said, Greg, I knew this would be a powerful story, man, and I'm glad you were able to join us, y'all. Like we said, we go back 18 years now, 16 years in the fold. This is my line brother. Out of 9 good men, this is number 7, and I was number 9. So I'm thankful to be here with my brother. Thankful that we have so many of our family members, our brothers on the line. Shout out to the good brother Sauce, man, for holding you down. And he really was a conduit to be able to talk to you. I know, even when I reached out a few times, I could tell that you give me some, but you wouldn't.
Yeah.
So sometimes I hear Sauce and be like, Sauce, you check on him. Sauce like, yeah, I talked to him. You good? Okay. All right, solid. But we love you, brother. We glad you made it through. I hope everyone on the line tonight learned something, got something, was encouraged, was pushed in a particular way, especially around therapy, because Greg really pushed this concept. And so we'll close out. Once again, I'm Yusha Assad, recording artist, motivational speaker, master certified life coach. And this is the Heal Me campaign, Brotherly Conversations. We'll be back again tomorrow night. Tap in on this live. And then this live recording of Greg will actually be posted later this year as part of our release schedule. But good time tonight, bro. Good time.
Yeah, appreciate you.
Too. We went over and it don't even feel like it. So
right. I just looked up at the time. I was like, dang, but yeah. I'm glad we're able to tap in finally.
Yeah, I want to shout out Nadia too, because she was in the comments and she said 07 was a very good year.
It was
the best.
People don't even know, man.
EOS, we the best, baby.
For real.
Bless us, bro.
All right.
We're gonna close out.